Episode 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. What's happening? Elders of the Block is on episode 4. We got some special guests in the house today. We're going to talk about some topics that had to do with humanity, culture that we've created or someone's created, the engineering of man and woman. We're going to talk about our theories, ideas, opinions, suggestions, concepts. There's got to be some solutions in there too, huh? We got to talk about that. A lot of times we get into these conversations and we try to explain ways that we can get through it, you know, social engineering, let's call it that. So we started off with really anything, and one of the possible ways to do it is talk about in the beginning, huh? So in the beginning there was man. Let's start with that. Where did things go wrong?
When that damn snake.
You said it. In the beginning there was man. That's where things went wrong.
Right.
I think at the beginning there was consciousness, and then man came and fucked it up.
Man.
Hey, okay. So now we're getting somewhere.
Well, it's like Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan had that quote. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl Sagan had that quote where it was like, in terms of, racism, he said, imagine yourself looking back on this tiny dot, a speck of light in the vast universe. And on that tiny dot in a tiny galaxy, you're one of, was it 6 million species, and that out of all those species, like your species is the most important, and out of that species, one like race or one gender is the most important. That it's just hubris to think that out of like all the vast expanse of space, that one tiny little thing is so important and so significant, and that it matters more than anything else.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate that we have become so what's the word?
Egotistical.
So yeah, that's part of what I was trying to say. That we would assume that we're the only ones in the universe, and it doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever that we'd be the only ones here. So it does stand to reason that we have been influenced, whether recently or I'm sure in thousands of years. This planet has been visited, and we've got the evidence to prove it. So how our evolutionary status got changed, it's because we introduced greed and all of the negative things that mankind is exploiting today.
I have a question on that.
It's really unfortunate.
I have a question on that. We all can agree on that. When did that take place? Was it at the beginning when man was created? If man is in the image of God, then why do we have these types of attributes about us that have completely demolished what we were in our original form and thought to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we pull those two references apart?
Well, I mean, you're talking about like vast simplification of a highly complex system that we're in. These fables that we use culturally to use as an example to live our lives and to understand and make sense of things. It's like trying to explain why the sky is blue to a child, right? Well, it's just blue because it is blue, it's just an oversimplification of things, but because of the hardware that our brains are running at, can't comprehend the vast complexity of the energy and the power that it takes to run the universe.
Another thing that we probably are not aware of is that we're still a very primitive species in the universe. Yeah. Even though we've gotten to this technological point where, life is a lot easier than it was 100 years ago, we're still we're still about 2.5 dispensations in time, and that could be an ice age or some other kind of long acting time sequence, but we're 2.5 times behind the normal evolutionary spheres of space. And we are the lowest order of free will created life in our local universe. So it stands to reason that we're still just barely crawling out of the jungle, and we're just barely starting to become civilized. But unfortunately, we still have a lot of animal vestiges of emotion, and you know, we haven't learned how to share very well, and especially if we don't look the same.
Right.
Yeah, the free will comes in and allows people to have fear, and the fear ends up taking over the idea of what we're originally meant to be, which is love, right? So the idea is that everyone goes through life and a structure that we've been born into without choice, and we're told and we're indoctrinated to say certain things and act a certain way and wear certain things based on the environment. Well, that environment dictates whether or not you grow up in fear or you grow up with love.
Well said. Yes. And love really is the aim for all of us to understand and utilize in every facet of our life. It's really that simple. In fact, I was trying to think of some of the very basic motivations for everybody on this planet, and it really does fall back on fear. We're afraid we're not going to be accepted. We're afraid we're not going to be able to have enough to eat, to clothe ourselves. We won't find the right person in our life. We're just afraid of everything. And with all the crap that's going on right now with the media shoving this crap down our throat without any reservation as to whether or not it's right or wrong, they're not doing anything to dissuade this fear. They're only adding to it. And until we can get media that will represent the truth and start talking about love instead of this animosity and hate that seems to pervade the world, we're never going to make any advancement as a civilization.
Absolutely. But what do you think about what do you think about the duality of that? Because we're talking about love and fear, and there's so much bifurcation and like deeply embedded in the code of our universe that, like, how do you exist on a plane of love without having fear? Or, you know what I'm saying?
That's a really great question, and if I had an answer, I would try to offer it, but I really don't. If I had the answer, I'd be out in the street corner right now saying the end is near.
Let me try to add to that, because the idea of fear allows us opportunities to make choices in our life. And if we make choices in our life, then there's room to grow as people. And I think whatever you want to call, you know, the higher consciousness, you know, God, or whatever word you have that rules the universe or rules the construct that we're in, it is given to us due to free will to make these choices and to learn from our mistakes and go through life and grow as people. And whether or not we learn to love by the end of our life, you know, it's up to us individually.
Yeah, this is true. And one thing that I've come to an understanding, and especially in the past 5 or 6 years, is that no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing or how I'm feeling, that love never changes from our Creator, from the highest power. It never stops. The only thing that stops it is me getting into the way. And until I have an epiphany where I don't have that block anymore, I'll have the same fears and doubts as everybody else. But I'm very fortunate that I've had a lifetime of going through some of the philosophy, some of the religions, some of the experiences on this planet that leads me to believe that the more tied in we are to that love and the more receptive we are, the easier this life becomes.
Exactly. And it is due to those experiences that brings us our own truths, right? Because we don't understand truth unless we have the experience of that truth.
Amen.
I'm interested in what Lex had to say about duality. You know, the balance of the universe has to exist. It was there to even exist in the first place. It's always going to remain. We you know, like you said earlier, think that we're the highest, you know, in the food chain, that we're the only ones that have the brain capacity that's in the universe, at least, you know, here in the earth. But what about the duality? So if we're talking about love, that's something that everybody preaches all the time. They don't necessarily live that to the fullest though. So there, is it because of that balance existing within everybody that it sways you, you know, here and there at times to act or interact in the opposite of love? And what does that actually mean to us and to the overall bigger picture? Does it have a value to have it and to actually accept it and embrace it as a part of who you are? Or are we going to constantly say that it's bad luck, like the number 13, you know, or that it's not correct, it's not the right way to live? But time and time again, everything has an opposite, and those opposites are not necessarily a negative. You know, they don't exist in a negative manner. It's just an opposite. So we've kind of ruled everything as being opposite of something that we consider. We've made up our minds that as a whole, this is good, so this has to be bad. Taking, for example, black and white. Not only a skin color, but like even the color of a cowboy hat, you know, in the Westerns, you have the black hat and the white hat. We already know who's the bad guy by just what he's wearing. So with all that being said, where does that come into our daily lives today, and where we came from, and how can we utilize that so that it's not absent? You know, I feel there's got to be something to that. If we're always trying to pump love and be conscious about it, but then without that balance, what is that actually causing us to do? You know, snap and break at some point when we're tired of loving and we never get it back. You know, there's a lot of roads to this, a lot of veins.
What's interesting too.
Well, what do you think, Lex?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really great conversation. I'm just happy that we can have like deep existential conversations and not just surface level, like, you know, news, weather, sports, whatever. But what in terms of back to the duality thing, there's this theoretical physicist. I think he's a professor from the University of Maryland. His name's Jim Grant, and he was put on the map kind of a while back by like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Did some lectures with him. Anyway, he's a string theorist, and he did some deep mathematical research into like the fundamental equations of string theory. And one of the things that he discovered was in his mathematics of like the physics of the universe was that he found computer code. And this isn't, you know, like conspiracy theories.
Browser computer code.
Exactly. So you know about this. It's not just binary code, but it's actually like HTML code, like the internet code. So, you know, which, you know, could lead up into a lot of different discussions and conversations about, you know, simulation theory and that kind of stuff. But if that's the case, the duality thing makes a lot of sense, because even browser code, like you were saying, Lewis, still breaks down into the binary, right? It's on, off, something, nothing, you know, two opposites. Even like you look at subatomic particles, it's protons, electrons, you know, and so how do you, and like you're saying, what's a really good point is like good guy, bad guy. You know, it's and that good guy and bad guy can't control necessarily. It's almost like they're assigned a role in a game, just like the proton can't decide if it wants to be a proton. It just is. So yeah, it's crazy, interesting stuff. But are y'all ready to talk about simulation theory at all?
Yeah, at any
I'm
time
not
that
familiar
it
with it.
fits.
All right. So one of the things, have you all?
Simulation theory would knock the socks off you, man.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Like, has anybody here heard of Nick Bostrom?
Yes.
Okay. So
Not that I can remember.
for those that aren't familiar with him, Nick Bostrom is the head of the philosophy department at Oxford, in England, Oxford University. And he seems like Lewis knows about him. He has this thing called the simulation argument. And his argument basically proposes three hypotheses, or one of three conclusions. And I'm butchering, like, if you read his breakdown, it's basically like a paper that he wrote. Him and a team of people use deductive reasoning to philosophically break down three possible realities. I think the first one is that human beings are too primitive, like you were saying, Don, and we never achieve what he calls our like ancestry programs, to where we can, or ancestry simulations, to where we can go recreate like a video game of the entire existence of humanity, and you can go back and like visit your long lost relatives. He says the first scenario is that we don't achieve that. The second scenario is that we destroy, I think it's that we destroy ourselves, and we never achieve the capability of achieving simulated reality, which is indistinguishable from actual reality. And then the third one is, the third hypothesis is that it's highly likely that we're already in a simulation. So what's interesting about that third scenario is that it completely rules out the possibility that we are base reality and we create our own simulate. Like, just because we think we make video games, we have the technological capabilities of creating a simulation, we think in our heads that we're the ones that are going to achieve hacking or creating reality. But through deductive reasoning, he mathematically rules out that possibility. It says that it's like, you know, a 0.9, you know, a very, very tiny chance or possibility that we're living in actual reality, that if there was a possibility to create a simulated reality, that we would have done it already. The chances are far greater that it would, and that we're living in one of millions, maybe billions of possible created realities. So that's his hypothesis. What's everybody's thoughts on that?
Hey, Luis, we talked about that at one point. Real quick, we talked about that at one point. So if you happen to remember what it was that we kind of like ended up getting to it, you know, definitely bring that up. I can't remember what it was, because we were on one that day in that phone call, and everything started to make sense when we broke down AI and brought that into the picture. But David, were you about to say something? Who was that?
No, I'm just having a drink of water.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, that was one of the 20,000 phone calls that lasted 5 hours each, right?
Yeah. we get into this tangent on like these topics and conversations, and Luis has a lot of research time, you know, on his hands, and I do here and there as well. And we combine these and we keep talking about it, and things calculate, they make sense, they prove itself. But overall, it's a theory. It's not something that we can claim. And we started talking about how we shouldn't even engage in it in the first place, because as soon as you do, it's like advocating something that you didn't even have control of or even know existed in the first place. You know, there's a lot of people that won't understand this or even take the time to consider that there's a possibility in that, you know. But if you bring in like dreams, if you talk about the soul, there's a lot of things that we're connected to, the emotions and so forth and so on, that are not just us in the physical form, but the things that you can't touch, they're not tangible. What do those belong to, you know? Why was research done at some point? Not that this really is on the money with what we're talking about, but why was research done that when a person dies, they believe that something leaves your body? Because what was it? Our bodies were reduced to, subtracted by, I thought it was 7 grams or somewhere around 5 to 7 grams of weight leave your body, which they believed was a soul. Really interesting stuff, you know, and these are actual things that are calculated. It's not made up. You know, they did tests on several patients. What does that mean? You know, like, does energy have a weight to it? Is it actually that weightful, you know, in grams? But yeah, Luis, we had a lot of conversations. Since I've met Lex, we talked about some stuff. Boys, that's why everybody's here. We've all had like these in-depth conversations about things that are not answered, but are very strong theories that were brought to us through our readings and documentaries, so forth. And then even in conversations with each other and sharing this information, coming up with our own adventures and what we believe actually took place. They say that it's all in our genes, our DNA. We know where we came from somehow, some way. We do remember the past. We have an ability to connect. That would explain what you're talking about, Lex, to connect in a way that's downloaded, you know? Is that what it's like? Is it the synapses that we're talking about, the electrical current? What is it? Because, I mean, Luis, I don't know, Lex, how much you get into this, but how much are we actually just like a computer? But then I was reading something recently where we've yet to be able to recreate that. You know, AI is an attempt, but now AI is in more control than what we are of it. And we haven't yet been able to make a robot that we know of that actually operates exactly the same as a human being. So what is it within us that can operate that way that we can't recreate, but we've been created based on some people's theories? So it's like all these deep little fractals and containers of like, what was that Russian container called with the dolls?
The Russian
one,
dolls.
the
Oh, the nesting dolls.
Hold up.
Russian doll one.
Nesting.
But I mean, there's so many ways of looking at this and using analogies and you know, visual aids. But what is it that we're trying to actually find out in these conversations, in our theories? Because like I mentioned, when Luis and I get into depth with this, it's kind of like it unravels itself. And to simplify it, I've told people, as soon as you say the word God and you try to engage in what God is and looks like, when you go the direction and say he, you know, where does that come from? But I believe that as soon as you mention God, as soon as you start to go in that direction, you actually have broke some kind of a boundary where it's just chaos. You can't identify anything that created you. That's not the way that it was intended. So for us to write books on what God said really gets my attention. It gets my interest because I want to know what really happened in that process, as opposed to what somebody did in a creative way. We have no idea what hallucinogenics people were on when they wrote these books way back at the beginning, and what influence they had on people. That's another version, you know? I think about stuff like that at the beginning. How did we get where we are now through a book like a Bible, you know, the Torah?
That sounds like the stoned ape theory. Have you heard of that?
No, but see, you know, they're all parallel with each other. We all feel these things within us, and we say, what was it that started this whole thing, you know? There's a blast in the universe, and we're particles of stardust, you know what I'm saying? And when it landed into the ocean, I remember Don was saying the other night that there's just enough salt in the sea to create life, you know? And with that connected to whatever meteors hit that had the ingredients that we're made of, you know, in order for that to start. But was there any help? Are we strictly, as wondrous as we are, in our natural sense, just based on evolution entirely? Because we outdo, in our minds, you know, in some way, everything else that's out there. How many species did you say? 6 million? We feel like we're superior to everyone. We've done so many different versions of things that our mind and body together have created, you know? Why isn't there any other life forms out there doing the same thing that's similar to us that we can understand? The intelligence thing, I feel so far removed from when people say they're intelligent and that we're some kind of higher form of intelligence here on the earth. You know, as what Don was saying when we opened up, the audacity for us to say who we are and what position we have in this world, much less in the universe, and then to keep trying to go out there, just took the, what is it called? Whatever the name of that was for SpaceX, just took that out to the space station. What are they doing? Are they trying to find out the truth? And in the meantime, they're just feeding us all these books.
You know, that's the question of the ages. You know, who really knows the answers? We're all still mired in this reality that we call life on this planet. It's a material planet, and from what I understand, it's an experimental planet. So the life that was put here with the experiment that's going on is being watched and being reckoned with. It's up to us to survive this. It's up to us to invent, because we have the ability to do so, ways to counter the myriad dangers that we face. It's an unfortunate dichotomy that we have to, on one hand, we celebrate our advancement as a civilization. On the other hand, we have to look at the reality of how very primitive we still are. Yeah. And until we grow up and start facing challenges with grace and with dignity and with love, we're going to be doomed to fail each and every time. We have to make personal growth the forefront of our goals. We have to take all of the issues that, and there are many, that beset and befall each and every one of us, and even more. We have to learn to accept that, because there's a reason for that condition to exist. And I don't know how everybody is set on their spiritual path, but it's come to my attention that all of the things that we complain about, all of the negative things that happen in our life, are merely a way for us to grow through the experience and come out the other side a better, changed individual. And this is a slow process. I think a lot of our problem in the human condition we're living in is that we have all grown up in an age where we have instant gratification for all of our needs. And it hasn't been this easy in the history of humankind ever. So unfortunately, technology does more to distract and keep us from growing in our personal growth than anything else. And then because we're being retarded in our personal growth, we're not able to grow socially. So you can see all of the protests that are going on and how little it makes sense that if you really feel very strongly about an issue, the very worst thing you could do to try to get somebody's attention is blow up their house. Yeah. That's not going to do anything.
Looking at it from that angle, looping back in kind of the simulation argument, is interesting to think possibly one of the three scenarios is that we destroy ourselves. I think that there's this deep insecurity that we as humans have, that we feel inferior, like because we projected out this idea of a God, a creator, or something, you know, bigger than us, that we're not worthy of making it to where we can live in this Star Wars future scenario where, because fundamentally we haven't worked through things as a species. And back to earlier talking about love, there is this feeling of this idea of like, we are, even if we are living in one of the versions of the simulation, what's the point? What's the goal? You know, I get that there's an argument to be said, don't even bother, there's nothing we can do about it, don't talk about it, don't think about it. But if we are a goal-oriented species, like we want to go to the moon, or we want space travel to become more regular, or whatever that goal is there also a case to be made about where our, like you're saying, where our intentions are aligned, and the order of things, right? Because if we're evolving or progressing on a linear timeline as a species in the 4 dimensions of reality, then what is that order that we need to get figured out first before we can ascend or become more than human, or leave the bodies behind, as Terrence McKenna once said. Like, and I do think, you know, back to what Don was saying earlier, and Lewis, is it Lewis or Luis?
However way you'd like to pronounce it, bro. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so what you were saying earlier is that if we can get the love aligned first, right? If we can figure out to love ourselves, love each other, take the steps that we need to take to all love each other equally, not just respect each other equally, because, you know, then we're not going the full way across the Atlantic. Like, once we can learn to fully all love each other, then we can really start to accomplish things. But until then, we're just going to be chasing our tails over and over. And, you know, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to practice it or to make it a mandate. And or how do we ever get to that point, you know? And I think that once we align ourselves, and I feel like we're all in alignment with that goal here on this conversation, then we can start using all those measurement systems to figure out how we need to accomplish what we're going to accomplish. But until we figure out the love aspect of it, to make that like the fundamental source and requirement for everyone, everything we're just going to be spinning our wheels, in my opinion. What do y'all think?
Yeah, so where I like to start is, and this is the way that I have found progress in my life, is the idea that I start with me, right? And then my surroundings change. I've had the worst of luck. Scribe knows this. We've been roommates. I've had the best of luck. I've been on the tallest ladder. I've been at the bottom of the barrel, okay? And I can go back in my history of my life and review every instance of where I went wrong and where I went right. And I can reconsider, are those good choices or those bad choices, right? And the idea of every time that I've excelled or gone further or progressed in my life, I've always done it with the intent, right, to be who I am, not what somebody else is wanting me to be, and do what I enjoy doing, not what someone's forcing me to do, and doing it genuinely to help others, right? And not selflessly help others, because again, Scribe knows this about me. I can care less about money in this world. It'd be nice to have it. It's great, yeah. But I do a lot of shit for free. I mean, a lot. Full websites, full video productions, right? And that's just me because I enjoy doing those things, right? And I like to see other people progress. And I like to see people get to where they want to go. And that's just been me my whole life. And so the idea of going back to where we start, I think we have to start with us and not trying to change each other, right? Because when we change, other people change around us. And we can see that. You can experiment on your own by going into Walmart and saying hi to somebody or smiling at somebody or giving somebody the time of day. And maybe they're having a shitty ass day, but because you did what you did, now you've flipped their whole mentality around, and now they're having a really great day, right? I've been in customer service for a very long time, and I've seen that time and time again. Where I'm having a shitty day, I get nothing but shitty attitudes towards me. When I feel like I'm having a good day, you know, I help other people have a good day. But then when I'm having a shitty day and somebody comes in and they're really nice to me, then I start having a better day, right? And that's where I'm talking about when it comes down to the consciousness and the love, because we can all affect each other when just by being around each other, but we don't even have to be around each other to affect each other, right? I can think negative thoughts about Scribe and he'll start getting negative thoughts, or I can start thinking about him in any way, shape, or form, and then my name will pop up in his head and he'll probably call me. And I'll be like, yo, I was just thinking about you, bro, right? That's the interconnectedness that we all have on this planet. And I've told Scribe this many, many times, is that I feel that we live in a magical place, right? Because it's almost like the movie, The Avatar, where everything is interconnected. All the plants and all the trees are glowing with life, right? And all the animals, they're all one. Well, I think we're all one because I've experienced that, right? I've put thoughts in somebody's head without them even knowing.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? I've made people do things without them even knowing. And they've made me do things without me even knowing. It's the craziest thing, right? But science, going back to what science has to say about this, is there's more now than ever before of scientists, right? Quote unquote scientists. The idea is that there's a lot of the academic world believing that in materialism, and I think we have to get away from that, because there are the fabrics of the subatomic universe that say that there's a fabric, there's an energy there, and we can't calculate what that is, but all life has it, the whole universe has it. It's connecting everything together. And it's like almost like the fabric of space, right? Or like what they call like dark matter or whatever that is, right? They give it all these names, but I don't think we can ever articulate that. I really don't think that we can ever find words to describe what that is. The only thing we could do is feel it. And I know we all feel crazy things at certain times and we can't explain them, right?
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
But things end up happening to us, and now we can try to look at it and be like, oh man, like that stepping stone led to that stepping stone, and then it became this big thing over here. Wow, I benefited from all of those stepping stones, all that turmoil I went through. I benefited from all of that because it made me grow as a person.
Definitely.
Right? And I mean, you put all that into perspective of your own life, and that's why I say we all have our own realities.
Yeah.
And we have to start with ourselves. We can't push our beliefs on other people.
So that's really important what you said. Start with yourself from inside and go out, figure out who you are and how you feel and what it means. Include everybody and everything while you do that, because you are interconnected. And also when you're talking about love, we have different variations of love. You have the love for a type of food that makes you feel, the dopamines are popping when you eat something. You have the love for a relationship, a person in your life in a relationship. You have the love for something that's inanimate, like skateboarding or a project, or something that you like to do physically, skateboarding. Those different variations, what does that actually mean? And what's the intent behind all of those, on why love is always so scrambled from the person that starts it, because their intent for love was wrong. If you tell a woman, if you're a man and you want to tell a woman that you love them, what does that actually mean? Because people say that all the time, and we got a holiday that says it for us. But you go and you buy a box of chocolates that says I love you, that you're not really saying anything. That's all the intent is wrong, And what happens,
to get money.
Yeah, what happens when you remove yourself from that equation, but you're in a relationship with a woman, for example, she doesn't get it, then what she does is she yells at you. You didn't get me anything. You aren't thinking about me. That's not what love is to me. That's why I didn't do that. I'm not following what Hallmark tells me to do in order to make you feel good. That's not my love. That's not my intent. And if I'm not successful at what love is and you're not feeling it, then either I'm not showing properly or you're not receiving it. You're missing the whole point of a relationship, you know? So love, you know, we can make that be our foundation. And what is it actually doing to us as people, as a culture, when these variations that I just explained are running rampant through our minds and through our stores, you know, our economy, it's our culture. How do we tell people out there that's listening what love really is, you know?
Like metaphorically, it's almost like your feelings are like a virus, right? Like if you're feeling love and happiness, it's infectious. People they contract that around you. If you're angry, I mean, how many times you've been with somebody, you're angry, you say something you don't mean, and you're angry, and that feeling comes out, and then the person you're with, they take it the wrong way, they get angry, and now they're holding on to that anger, but you feel better because you got it out of your system and it's left you. You know, and there isn't a better time now to understand the effect of viruses because we're living through a pandemic. But if we all started caring about how we treat each other the way we care about not wanting to spread a virus around, you know, maybe that could help too, lead us in a direction to where we're very conscious of how we treat each other, because it affects your surroundings. To what you both were speaking of earlier, how do we practice better emotional hygiene, I guess is what you would call it.
I mean, we have to check ourselves, right? Like we have to make sure that when we're driving down the road, that when the next person cuts us off, that we're not going to try to do that back to them, right? That we're just, you know, going to say, you know what, that person might be having a bad day. You know, let me send them some love and, you know, some care, and maybe, you know, he'll get it, right? Or she would get it. So it's when we try to battle each other, either through words or actions, is where it becomes a major problem. And I'm not saying to be a little bitch and bow down to everybody, but you know, you're not harming anybody by sending them love. You're harming people by interacting with them on a negative vibration. You know, so the idea is, you know, when you know you've done something wrong, or you've done something to hurt somebody else, or you've done something to hurt yourself, then check yourself. Be conscious of that action and say, you know what, next time I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to try not to do it. Because if you keep checking yourself, you'll change that pattern. Those patterns will change. It's like anything. It's like you know, drinking too much or smoking too much, or whatever the case is, whatever habit you have, you can change your habits through conscious awareness of what you're doing, and through a little bit of mental strength, right? You know, I've done that challenge of eating once a week. You know, I started off with eating twice a day, then once a day, and then 0 a day, right? And then once every 2 days, you know, so you build your mental capacity up, and in your body and your well-being to move forward through these emotions, right? And help yourself, right? Because when you start doing that, you'll only attract people that want to be around you, right? Like the guy that just jumped off the thing, he didn't want to be around us because he felt a certain way, and that's fine, right? We have to allow him to do that, allow him to go what he wants to do. We can't force anybody to do what they don't want to do, but we can do that for ourselves if that's what we really, really want, right?
The ego
Because
is a big part of that.
yeah, oh, of course. Well, the ego is the opposite of love, right? That's the fear. That's the fear mechanism.
I would like to boldly say that I believe a lot of people out there in the world, they will try to love with their ego intact, you know? And the reaction would be, oh, I love you, you know, can you give me a kiss? Or do you want to be my girlfriend? You want to hang out? And they say no. You're like, oh, that's all right, no problem, you know? We don't leave things alone and let them be what they are. But like you said, we want for ourselves what we want, but then we can't allow others to have what they want. and the ego is going to be a part of that love, and that's just destructive. So it's kind of like, you know, you're stepping up to the plate with a positive and a negative at the same time, and you already lost because that equals nothing. They cancel each other out.
Poise would be a good person to talk about this, because I know, Poise, you're interested in Zen, Buddhism, Eastern philosophy, things like that, and
Yep.
it seems like those thousands of years ago figured that whole system out of how to operate with the basic assumption of the four fundamental truths of Buddhism, but like to go into life thinking that, or to go into life with the goal that you're going to avoid negativity, you're in for a very difficult, painful existence.
And to accept it, correct?
Right.
To learn how to tolerate.
Yeah.
Yeah, tolerate is a good word there.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on, Luis had said a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of thoughts coming. I was trying to keep them going in my head so I could keep them together. I love when you use the word intent. I paroled in 2012, and I think in 2013, and it wasn't out of the blue. It came from a conscious decision. Basically, I paroled to a transitional home, and that's for people that's been incarcerated, and you really don't have a place to stay. So they say, well, you can transition to this place, a program. So when I got to this program, everybody, it's like about 15 people living in one house in Oakland, and pretty much almost everybody in the house was institutionalized, and that shit was driving me crazy. Because that's what I spent most of my time outside of trying to get out of prison, but my main goal was not to become institutionalized. That was my number one goal. I did 24 years straight. And so one day, it was one guy, he couldn't have he couldn't have a 5-minute conversation without it transferring to when I was up at Folsom. You know, so I'm fresh out on the streets. I want to talk about the world and, you know, new shit, and I'm ready. And everybody in the house, you know, it just reminded me too much of prison. So I'm like, man, I got to get the fuck out of here. I feel like I was going to go crazy. And I literally like ran out the house when it was time for us to go. And I ran out the house, got on the bus. I went downtown Oakland, and I met a homeless person. And normally, you know, I'd give a person, you know, a little bit of money or whatever. But for whatever reason, this particular day, I was feeling so fucked up, you know, living in that house, feeling like I was still in prison. Something told me, don't just give this person some money, you know, take them to eat and eat with the person. And I did that, and I felt real good. We had a cool conversation. Me and the person, we laughed a lot, and, you know, we had a real cool conversation. And then I came home that night, and everybody's, you know, doing what they're doing, and we gotta have group meetings and just all type of shit. It reminded me so much of prison. But while we were there that night, my mind wasn't even in the house. I was just thinking about my experience that I had that day. And then the next day I went out with the intent to do something good for somebody. I can't remember what it was, but the short version is I came up with this concept to just go out every day and do something good for somebody, whether it's big or small. And when I say big or small, like some days I'll go up to a person and whatever's in my wallet, I'll give it to them. And I've done this when I wasn't working, and it's not like I knew I had a paycheck coming, you know, next Friday. And it's the intent. And when we speak about the love, I was totally the opposite of this growing up. I didn't really care about people. I grew up in real rough neighborhoods, you know, a lot of crazy stuff, man. Survival mode, you know, pretty much just in survival mode. But I started that, and then I even came up with a saying called "Do something good for somebody that you don't know." And so that one thing alone right there helped me grow so much. And even though I still have, you know, I have my rough sides or the other side of the positive and the negative, you know, like when Luis was speaking on when guys cut you off. You know, when I came home, I ended up developing road rage. Never thought that I would have that shit. Me and Scribe, I got some stories. And, you know, I didn't been on high-speed chases on the freeway on the way to a job interview. And then when I finish the high-speed chase, I go to the job interview with the kids, and the guy's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm playing chess with the kids, but just came from a high-speed chase while on parole. So I did have some issues. But I stayed throughout that. I stay the course. I literally every single day I'll do something good for somebody. And Scribe lived with me for years, and it could be small, it could be anything, doing the dishes or taking somebody's cup, you know, putting in anything, just whatever it is. And if nobody's in the house, I'll do something good for me, and that has helped me elevate, and it's also reinforced my connection with human beings. I like what Lex was saying about when you were talking about that thread, you know, that theory about that thread where everybody's connected to. I totally get that. I think that's what I was kind of trying to say earlier when I was saying that I control everything in my life, because I realized that we're literally all connected, but it's not a metaphor. I believe that there's literally one conscious. It's one conscious, and we're all connected to it, but we're all able to think separately. You know, we all have our separate thoughts and our separate experiences, but we're all connected. So when Luis, when you talk about how I'm thinking about Scribe and he'll call, so on and so forth, for years and years and years, I used to try to teach people that, because we take it as a coincidence. Oh, it's a coincidence. It's not a fucking coincidence. Those are the powers that I believe that we had before all this technology, all this schooling, all this religion told us that we weren't who we really are. You know, we're spiritual beings having an earthly experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience, and I totally get that. I totally get it. It doesn't take away the anger, you know, out of me when I see injustices going on, you know, so on and so forth. I'm always coming from a point of love, except when I was in my road rage shit, you know. But,
well, that's the human side of us, right?
Exactly.
And that's you answering to the ego too, you know. Unfortunately, like you've answered to your ego at times, you know. It got you in trouble, and it continues to get you in trouble. It, you know, and then the love on the other side, it takes you out of trouble. Because not only Luis talked about his experiences where you just floating, man, you feel good. You're not really, you don't have anything that's going on around you that interferes with the feeling that you have when love is actually on fire, you know? Nobody can do anything to it if you learn how to remove yourself from that ego. As soon as you allow that ego to be next to you, or to contemplate if you had that ego, anything, you know what I'm saying? Then you start to come up to that fence, and you might be on it at the most, or you might go over, you know, and there's your high-speed chase on the freeway. What does it all mean? What is it for at the end? But you guys are both saying the exact same thing with different stories about how you have released your ego. And then you've also acknowledged that it's there, and you talk about the exact same reaction or response, you know, from releasing the ego and what happens in your lives. And it makes me want to go out and experience that right now, because I don't like negativity. It's going to be there, like we just talked about. It's part of the balance, but let's not focus on that part. Let's let it be who we are. There's so many ways to be negative without focusing on it. And then I don't think anybody else, if you're not, I don't think anybody else can be like, hey, your ego's looking pretty fucked up over there. If you're not about the ego, nobody's going to notice that the ego is there, even though it's there. Yeah. So let's you know, be both. Let's exist. But that's the coexistence on a greater level, the macrocosm of what we need to identify with at a time like this, when we're talking about the spectrum of Black people, white people. There isn't a spectrum. There's a balance, but there's no spectrum of people. People should be the hub. Consider them as the hub of that yin and the yang. You know, the division. We're the division line of the two balance. Why should we say that Black folks are on one side of the spectrum and white folks are on the other side? Because that's going right back to what we said about the cowboy hats, black and white. One of them has to be negative. If you're going to, you know, take us out of the center of a balance, one of them has to be negative and has to be positive. Who's going to get that? So what's being said, hopefully, has come to a conclusion for everybody that's listening to this. we really want to emphasize how the world opens up in a whole different manner than what you've ever experienced if you learn how to identify what the ego is. Let it fall, release it, don't answer to it. And then you'll actually feel what love is. Because I'm going to be honest, I used to hate the word love. I didn't like to say it. It wasn't something that was said around my family because it just seemed cliche. You know, it's like, now's a good time to say it. Why? Because I just got a gift. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not when you say I love you because you received a gift. But as a child, that's what you say because that's what seems to happen. And then you grow into that. Remove yourself. Once again, I'm going to keep saying these things. Remove yourself from the equation. You're not a man or a woman. You're not a human anymore. You're not a part of what's going on when you spectate, when you interact, when you communicate. Let that be something that is secondary, that's obvious. Let's not step to somebody as a black person, as a white person. Let's not step to somebody as a man or as a woman. Let's not step to somebody as a 10-foot person that can throw their weight around, or a midget who's got, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that term.
Little person.
A little person that has a small man's complex, you know? Let's not allow these things to be a part of our life because people are going to feed off of that if you bring it to the table anyway. If you're a short person, you come to the table with the love, and there is no such thing as a short person. People don't see you that way. They don't receive you that way because you're not coming to the table that way. You removed yourself from your body, you know, and that's why I did that song, Body Mind Complex, you know. You have your body and you have your mind, you're wrestling between the two. It's a complex, yo, just like the God complex. People think they're superior because they have the ability to do this or do that, or think this way, or jump higher, or swim faster, or rap faster, whatever it is, you know, ollie higher, throw darts in the center of the bullseye every single time. Whatever it is your skill is, that's something that you actually ultimately love, and you probably excel in it because you love it. But then when you bring that ego in there, then people are going to judge you, be judgmental, because you're like, no one's better than me in darts. I hit the bullseye with every. People don't even care anymore, you know? But the people who do care is that culture that's been created where you're a celebrity based on your status. You know, people are putting you in magazines, taking pictures of you, want to talk to you, hang out with you. You're getting a lot of money from every game that you play in like a professional championship of some kind. The people who surround, and all artists and entertainers and anybody that makes money at a high level know this, they're all fake. Everybody that surrounds you in that kind of a status is fake. The intent, there's that word again, the intent of the people who are fans that come up to you don't really typically want to know who you really are, or just exist with you and not say anything or do anything. They want the status. They want to be next to the status. They want to be a part of that. Why? Because there's a lot of people out there who don't know how to tap in on what Poi says every single time we talk. He gets it. What we have identified with, everybody that's on this panel right now, is the ability to understand this and to know that there is a difference, because we've all done it at one point or another. And so we've come together to speak about not only that. I'm glad that that ended up being our topic, you know, something that we focused on. But, you know, earlier when I threw a bunch of stuff out, it was to get the conversation going on where we were going to go.
And everything you were just saying, Scribe, if anybody that's listening, you want to leave the matrix, it's real simple. Mm-hmm. Just, I mean, at your own discretion, you know, but I'm just saying personally for me, when I want to leave the matrix and get a glimpse of outside of this man-created society, this world that we've all constructed that is the matrix, go into the woods, go into the wild, go deep in there, spend several nights. I'm not talking about a campsite, car camping, no. Pack up an overnight bag, go into the woods, spend time there for several days till you start to absorb this planet that you're living on and how it operates, how it functions, clear your mind out, get all the thoughts out, and then you can start to see things clearly. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents there to help give anybody advice that needs to step outside the matrix and all this craziness that we call reality to get a clear glimpse of things, and just meditate in a meadow in the forest away from man-created structures, systems. Anyway, well, Poise, we'll pass it back to you. Closing.
Yeah. For the viewers that may be like I was growing up, going through a lot of stuff, and I would hear this word love like scribe, and I would be like, what the hell does love have to do with this dude beating the fuck up out of my mom? You know, what does love have to do with these gang members chasing me and the police putting guns at my head laughing and just all this other shit? I couldn't understand that shit. But ironically, out of all the places in the world, when I went to prison, I received love from everybody. And this shit goes unsaid, from the races. I used to get love from every fucking body. The Hispanics and down south, they don't get along with the blacks. But in prison, I had respect from the Hispanics, the Sureños, the Paisas, the skinheads, the Aryan Brotherhood. They just knew it was something about me that they liked. And that told me something about me. It helped me understand. It helped me change, because there was one point where I had became a militant, you know, and I wanted all white people off the earth, to keep it 100. I was like, the world ain't gonna never change until you just kill all the white people. That was me. Now my wife is white, if you haven't noticed. So, you know, but it took all those people showing me things, even in times of war. You know, I would always, I'm gonna give you one more example, and I'm gonna leave on this. I had a cellie who everybody was scared of at Soledad. His name, he had an African name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But he was a big, swole brother, and he was in jail for beating a white brother to death with his hands, literally. And the police were scared of him. People wouldn't last in the cell for like over a couple of days. So when I moved into his cell, I didn't know that the whole yard was watching me to see how long I was gonna last in his cell. I was like kind of like the joke. So when I moved in, me and the dude ended up being hella cool, and he was a cool ass brother. He just didn't like people. He didn't like stupid motherfuckers, you know, and he was just a serious brother. And people couldn't figure out how I lasted in the cell. But one day we was in the cell on lockdown. Something had happened on yard ride or some shit. And it was a white brother coming down the tier, and he was knocking on doors, and he was asking for soups. And his name was Muzambique. And so the brother, he comes and he knocks on my door, and he's like, excuse me, anybody got a soup? So I jump off the bunk, I go in my locker, I grab a couple of soups, and I put them under the door. I could see my cellie watching me. He's on his bunk, and I could see him looking at me, but I'm playing it off like I don't see him. So he's waiting for me to finish. As soon as I finished, I gave the brothers the soups. He was like, thanks, man. You know, he walked off, and then he's looking at me like this on his bunk, and he said, they called me Showtime back then. He said, hey, Showtime. And I ain't gonna use the word that he said, but it was disrespectful, you know, to the brother. He was like, why you give blah, 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 you know, some of your soups? And I looked at him like this, and I said, because he asked. That's all I said. And that was, we didn't have no more conversation. You know, I said, because he asked. And for some reason, even in times of war or whatever, I will still help my enemy sometimes. Every once in a while, I don't know where that comes from. But when I how can I say it? I don't really know where it came from, but I'm glad it came. I'll just say that, you know, and even to this day, and don't get me wrong, you know, if a person's doing some fucked up shit and you know, especially if they trying to hurt somebody and I'm around, if I can stop it, I'll try to stop it. But at the same time, everybody needs love. And people don't get that. You know, when they say love your enemies, that don't mean let your enemy walk over you or whatever, but they need love too. You know, so every once in a while I would go do something, you know, just like how I gave that brother them soups, I'll just go do something for somebody, you know, that I know that don't give a fuck about black people. And that might, and I don't do it for the reason that I might be the person that changed his life. I just do it for whatever the fuck. I don't know what's in me that makes me do it. You know, maybe that's my mom inside of me.
Real quick, Poise, to answer, you said you don't know why you love enemies and you help enemies. That's because they were never your enemies. Certain people within a group that are considered enemies by everybody else that says they are They were never your enemy in the first place. So
Yeah.
you don't identify with that. You have removed yourself from that bullshit ego that we keep talking about. And that's the example that you've lived it. It's proof that you would do something like that for somebody. There is a limit though.
Yeah, for
There is a
sure.
limit.
For sure.
One.
So I'll end on that note, man. Love being the most powerful. Like I said earlier, I couldn't understand growing up when people would always say, you know, talk about love, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to hear that shit. And they would always say it's the most powerful, you know, thing in existence. But now I really get it. I really get why it is, because without the love for our country, the love for humanity, the love for space travel, the love for gardening, the love for raising babies, you know, we would be, or we wouldn't be. You know, we wouldn't be. We wouldn't exist.
That's right.
Because people had to do things in order to help us, you know, advance, you know, to prosper.
That's
right. So I get that even in this day and time, you know, in this crazy ass day and time that we live in, and I agree with it wholeheartedly and 200%. Man, love is and intent. I love Louise. That word intent is so powerful, and when I do these things for people, I do it with the intent before I even go out. I'm gonna make somebody's day. I don't like, I'm gonna go, but when I come across that person, I give them the energy that they need to boost up, you know, to lighten up, and it's amazing, man. It's amazing. I didn't get a lot of love as far as people looking out for me, like I said, growing up going through hell. But when I went to prison, motherfuckers looked out, you know. And then it's kind of like one of the most awkwardest places that you would imagine. Even an officer. One time I disrespected an officer so bad, I told him that I wanted him to die, his kids to die, and everything. And the officer, like a couple of days later, I went over and apologized to him. I said, dude, I got accused for something I didn't do. And man, y'all had me hot. And the dude was like, he wasn't even tripping, you know, and he could have smashed me. He could have sent me to the hole, did all type of shit. But he, you know, he respected me coming to him like a man and apologizing. So, yeah, I'll end with that, man.
Right on.
All right, Lewis, closing thoughts.
Cool, man. Hey, I enjoyed this, man. You guys are awesome people, man. You know, I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff, and I enjoy talking to a lot of people, even though I don't get many opportunities to talk to people thoroughly. I'm more of an introvert, and I have a great deal of empathy for a lot of people in their situations. And so I'm just trying to give you guys some context of who I am. I know Poise knows me a little bit. Scrab, you know me in and out. Don, you know, we have some experiences together, and that's cool. But I feel like, you know, we need to connect more too. And Lex, that's your name, right, Lex? I appreciate you, brother, man, for, you know, doing this and, you know, helping putting this together and organizing it. And, you know, it's much needed in today's world of people connecting with each other genuinely, right? Like, not because they have to, not because they're paid to, but because they want to, right? And because, right, that it goes a long way in this world. And I think that's what the foundation is of this world and the way that we interact with each other. But on a scientific note, I wanted to leave you guys with this idea that I've been exploring for quite a while, and you know, and it kind of encompasses our whole world that we live in and the whole structure of our society, and it's based on the idea of what frequencies are, right? You know, there's a vibration. You know, we've heard of the Schumann resonance, and we heard of sound, you know, affecting people in positive ways and negative ways. But we also have different frequencies that travel around us based on technology that we're using, based on you know, Wi-Fi and, you know, cell phone devices, all these different things, and they're all clashing, they're all mixing, and we have our own vibration, we have our own frequency, and it can get mixed up in this whole chaotic mess of what we've done to this world. And so, Lex, when you say go out to nature, that is like the most phenomenal thing any human being can ever say at this point, because those trees out there, even the trees in your backyard, who's to say that we don't come from them? Right? That trees are living things. Who's to say that they're not listening to us? Just because they're not talking back to us doesn't mean they're not conscious. That, they're not consciousness. So the idea here is, we can do the experiments, we could do all these science things to prove all this stuff, that there is an energy force in this world and frequencies that exist that affect everything that we do, right? And so I've been experimenting on myself for this whole pandemic with binaural beats. You can find those on YouTube, but it's an idea that you can, when you go into meditation states, these sound frequencies, they help you get to certain mental states, and you get to experience certain things in this world that you probably would never think that actually exist. And what I'm really talking about is that we are transmitters and receivers of these frequencies, and every technology company in this world knows this, especially Google, because Google went out and got the patents for this shit, and you can look them up. But the idea is, even Elon Musk has been saying this for the past 6 months or so, that they're going to tap into our brains with technology and read our minds and understand, our thoughts before we even think them, kind of shit, So there's something to all of that, and the foundation of this world, I think, has a lot to do with those frequencies. So the way I kind of like use it as like a metaphor is that we're like radios, right? Like we can change our channels whenever we'd like, based on our intent and our thoughts and who we're around and things of that nature. And so if you dial your channel into the right frequency and hold it there for as long as you can do some amazing things. And I've experienced those amazing things in my life. More recently, some really magnificent things that I can now control. Whereas when I was a little kid, I used to experience, premonitions, and I always thought, like, what the heck is that? Like, why do I dream of something and then it comes true, right? Well, we're tapping into certain things that you may not fully understand, and science tells us is bullshit. But when I experience it and I can control it, now there's a reason why I say that shit is real, right? Like, these things exist, and if you want to tell me that I'm wrong, go ahead. I don't care, as long as I know that what I experienced is my reality, right? And some people will call that, oh, you're crazy, you're this and that. Well, yeah, go ahead, call me names. It doesn't affect me, right? What affects me is the idea that, hey, if you're around me, don't bring those negative thoughts around me, or else that's gonna, push me away. So that's why I always come back to, like, saying, hey, let's agree to disagree, or let's be in the same room and just not talk about those things. Let's change our frequencies. So yeah, and because we're all human beings, right? And that's the idea, is just to be as a being of this world. It's that's why that word is in our description of who we are. I think when we just are, when we are who we are, magnificent things happen.
Right.
So and it could be induced by psychedelic drugs, but you don't need those to get there, right? Like, a lot of people use a lot of different kinds of psychedelics to get to that space, and you don't need to use that space. All you got to do is practice the relaxation of your body. Relaxing and being in nature, being amongst positive things will get you there, and it's a beautiful thing. So frequency is my key word for the night and for the time being, because I've been doing a whole lot of experimentation on it, and it's an awesome thing. So I'm no scientist. I'm what they classify as scientists to be, but I'm a scientist in my own right, because I'm figuring shit out. You know what I mean? I may not have a university degree from Harvard or, you know, Stanford or whatever, but guess what?
No.
I have some knowledge and I have some information, and, you know, I enjoy to share it, but if people don't want to listen, then that's fine. They don't have to.
Louis, that was a great thing to close on, and you are an eternal spiritual being that is beyond wisdom, beyond power. All of us were amazing,
We all are, yeah.
amazing creatures and beings, and you can't listen to outside rhetoric telling that you're anything other, that you're just a small little thing. No, it's a great clue, and I love that what you spoke on about frequency, energy, and vibration. I believe that's what Nikola Tesla, his famous quote was, is that if you could master those three things, energy, frequency, and vibration, you'll understand the keys to the universe. So Don, we don't have Don's audio, so I think that's it. Scribe, you want to close this out?
Yeah, just to close it out, man, tune into the frequency of love, folks. This is Elders of the Block, and you've been listening to the board members and my dad, also known as Dandada.
Dandada.
Peace, man. Love you guys.
For something. If you don't